This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove and everything that we're talking about here today. Okay, so we have a lot to take apart today, and we're going to take apart some general news, and then we're going to look at the idea of XRP really truly being a new source of money, a new form of money that has been created. I certainly believe that XRP is a currency, a bridge currency. I don't believe it's a replacement to any $1 on the planet. I believe it's actually a complement or a supplement to global trade and settlement between currencies of the world. So let's go ahead and get started with the news. I think you're going to like the stuff today because there is a much bigger plan, and I really do believe that, and we're going to talk about the idea of that plan today. So, first of all, shout out to Michael Val, 5 Links, XRP Crypto Wolf, DJ Peter Vass, and I think it's Desura Jesus. I have to say a big thank you to him and XR2D2, probably the greatest name in Twitter. So let's go ahead and get to this. So, and before that, we got to do the numbers, guys. Unstoppable domains. Guys, I'm still working. I'm going to celebrate some of you guys and highlight some of your .cryptos that you've been buying because I know that you guys have some fantastic ones. I can tell you that I'm very excited. My oldest brother and I have bought some that are relative to the state of Maryland where we're in, and taking that municipality approach to that whole idea of buying cryptos, and we're extremely excited, and not too long from now I'm going to tell you all about it. I'm actually working right now to be able to have a direct conversation. I've been having some back and forth with OpenSea and Unstoppable Domains and trying to set up a way that we can really help us all. So hang in there, keep those names coming, and it's exciting. It's exciting. So, all right. So here we go. The numbers are brought to you by Unstoppable Domains. The Bitcoin price right now is $10,876.30. Ethereum, $363.72. XRP is 24 cents. Let's go ahead and drill down on this. So the market cap is 10.9 billion. The 24-hour is down 2.3%. The 24-hour dollar amount is 1.69, almost 1.7 billion. And the total circulating supply, which changed yesterday, is 45 billion, 42 million plus. Those are your numbers. So let's go ahead and get into this quickly. So look, things are moving forward and things are growing rapidly. Today, Bitcoin, BAC's Bitcoin futures market registered a new all-time high with almost 16,000 contracts added during the day. The figure amounts to over $200 million worth of trading volume as per BAC. So let's keep that going, and congratulations to BAC on that. Now, this is where we want to start diving in here. So according to CoinDesk, there is a leaked draft proposal. The EU Commission may be rolling out an all-encompassing set of regulations covering the trading of digital assets. Let's take a look at this article really quickly. It's very good. European markets in crypto assets, MiCA draft legislation provides legal certainty around crypto assets, cryptocurrencies, security tokens, and stable coins along the same lines as Europe's Market in Financial Instruments Directive, known as MiFID. There's more acronyms in this space than you could shake a stick at. A legal framework of securities market and investment intermediaries and trading venues. The takeaways is that Europe intends to treat crypto the same as any other regulated financial instrument, which undoubtedly will provide legal clarity. The unknown is whether that may stifle the nascent and fast-moving space. Now, this is something we've been waiting for, or certainly I have. Look, the libertarian in me wishes everything could be decentralized and there would be no this and that, and you know the beautiful picture, but I think it's unrational. I think it's unreasonable to think that governments are going to sit around and let any of that happen to any great degree, right? So the reality is that, we need government regulatory framework, whether you like it or not, and that is going to bring the masses comfortably into the space and the institutional money. So that will build services and products to bring to masses, right? So, all right, the MICA proposal begins with a broad definition of crypto assets and a base set of rules that apply to the issuers of those assets and service providers. The latter is more or less in line with the Financial Action Task Force. Well, there's something I've been driving home for a long time. Definition of virtual asset service provider, known as a VASP, right? This is a particular focus on stablecoins in Europe, which are defined as either asset reference tokens or e-money tokens. Now, they do drill down into this quite a bit, and they talk about how those stablecoins that rely on a basket of currencies or are based by referenced or to other assets, whether that's another crypto or another kind of asset, they will be classed as asset reference tokens. Jones said in an interview essentially that the subgroup that behaves like e-money will be sucked into the existing e-money framework, while those that are asset referenced have a load of extra rules on top of the base rules. So clearly this is targeting stablecoins, and particularly global stablecoins. And this makes a lot of sense because they want to make sure that, if this is going to be a stablecoin or there's going to be a global stablecoin and it's going to be asset backed in some way, whether it's a basket or what have you, it better be backed enough to support every single transaction and not fractional. That's for sure. The attention to stablecoin chimes to comments made last Friday at an informal meeting of 5 European finance ministers in Berlin, which features calls for clear regulatory oversight over asset-backed coins like Libra. In addition to provide legal certainty around all crypto assets, another core tenet of the proposed regulation is apparently to support innovation. There will be many who will question that, said Jones, citing recent explosion in decentralized finance, DeFi, as an example of innovation involving the issuance of blockchain tokens that could be curtailed in Europe. Now, let me speak to DeFi for a second, because yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak with Brian Kerr from Kava Lab. Shout out to Brian. He's amazing. And VJ also as well, who was amazing in response to the questions that I asked. And I will get that clip for you probably later today or tuck it in a newsletter so you can see. But as developers, they are not concerned about what regulators think about decentralized finance. I'm going to say it again. As developers of a DeFi platform, they're not concerned what regulators think. So basically, as a developer, they're developing this thing, and here's this beautiful thing that people can use. Then it becomes up to, and I'll give an example, like Binance, to use it and add it as an add-on feature to their platform. So an ancillary product to the industry that they serve that becomes an extra feature that they can now offer. And because Binance will be KYC AML whitelisting you as a customer, then you can then use the DeFi platform because there is this AML KYC firewall between that actual DeFi platform and the user customer who needs to have that information put forth. So that I thought was extremely interesting, that they don't focus on the regulator. They focus on just developing this amazing platform and then let everyone else figure out how to work that in to their business model. So I think the thing to watch out for as we evolve going further into this is how does DeFi and the regulatory bodies of the world get along when we start to see DeFi graduate to a standalone business model, as well as, where it is today, where it interfaces as a option or a feature, a drop-down feature in something like a Binance. We're going to keep an eye on that because I don't think that talk is over by a long shot. In fact, I think it's just getting started. So among many regulatory obligations that will impose on crypto asset users, service providers, and European Union is needed to incorporate it as a legal entity and service providers to have registered office in a member state. There could be little doubt that MICA will present significant challenges for those involved in DeFi projects. The quid pro quo, Jones added, is the sort of regulatory clarity that is likely entice more institutional investment into the crypto space. By making crypto just like everything else in the traditional world, you make it easier for the traditional world to accept it. Oh, it feels so good to hear someone else say that, because it's exactly what we've been talking about here largely on this channel. So I would probably say from the draft that it will favor the banks, the traditional investment firms, where the big money is and all the customers are. The incumbents will have an advantage in a number of respects, which I'm sure is not the intention, but will be the short to medium term impact. It says 168-page set of draft rules, which Brussels said would come out in September, will not likely transition into EU law until 2022 at the earliest as an EU regulation. It will be directly applicable throughout the EEA without the need of national legislation. There you have it. It says here, summing it up, Jones said that the new regulation will probably create something of a bifurcation for crypto space. In a sense, crypto has benefited for much less of the last decade from being largely in a gray area. She said, but now you have very clear set of rules and you are either in or you're out. There you go. All right, so let's keep that going, because we remind everybody, we covered this yesterday, that at the same time, just happens to be at the same time on the other side of the world, that U.S. state bank regulators agree to a single set of rules for fintech and crypto firm licensing. Well, isn't that convenient? They just happen to have this happening at the same time. We know that Brian Brooks is rolling out a federal charter for the federally chartered banks. I covered yesterday that FinCEN released basically like a catch-all for anybody that is a bank or a non-bank that is not federally chartered, to absolutely make sure that they are KYC and AML as well, and that same umbrella of framework is encompassing everyone from the federally chartered banking system to anyone that sits just outside of that realm. So FinCEN making that change and that verbiage to encompass those. And now we see this happening as a rollout between 48, what I understand to be 49 states now. And I find this remarkable, and it benefits companies just like Coinbase and Ripple. Okay, so as things are rolling out, we also are reminded, and we talked about this as well, but this is a reminder that the glue between the traditional markets and the traditional firms and legacy firms of the world that don't have the updates, don't have they haven't quite gotten where they need to be, can get a hold of PayID, and they will join all payment networks and standards together and link crypto payment platforms with those that only use traditional fiat money. Here is the glue between the regulatory side encompassing the banks and the federal institutions or the institutions in the federally chartered banks and the non-banks and this, that, and the other. All of the regulatory is rolling out from EU side of the world to the US. And then we see PayID here to be able to join together and bridge fiat and cryptocurrencies payments globally. Remarkable. And PayID is started by Ripple. PayID trademark is held by Ripple. Just throwing that out there. So shout out to Brad Garlinghouse and Michael Val. 5 links for this one. Garlinghouse claims that he is disappointed by the government's flip-flop on crypto that is hamstringing the industry. Excuse me. He adds that India has one of the biggest unbanked and underbanked populations. And he's absolutely right. And it is terrible to see this happen. But I'll tell you something. I don't think this stays this way for long. Because this is, I mean, what is India going to become, the Bryant Gumbel about the internet when it came about? Who's going to use that? I mean, listen, innovation and technology waits for no one. And Jay Clayton understood that and said it in a congressional hearing when he was at the SEC there. So, the reality here is that, I think India, whether it's sooner or later, is going to understand whether you like the idea of this or not, you don't want to get behind. And just like we can see that through a public and private relationship between the U.S. government and, let's say, Ripple, they could easily leapfrog to the front of the pack to be in this fintech blockchain crypto race, right? So I see here, I see this as temporary. We'll keep an eye on it, but I see it as temporary. But while this is happening, let's take a look around the world for a second. What's going on? We see Neil Duncan here. Shout out to Neil Duncan. Why is Steve Mnuchin in every event held by the president? Why is he sitting right in the middle of this peace deal with Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain? Is it normal for the U.S. Treasury to be right in the middle of everything like this? Well, I don't think it's unusual. But what I do find unusual is that it's a peace deal. Right? It's a peace deal between 7 and 9 countries in the Middle East to seek peace with Israel. And this is a very big deal. And I have to tell you, why now? I have to ask, why now? It is exciting to see this. I mean, I have no problem. I don't care who's in charge or whatever. If you can get peace in the Middle East between Israel and the Middle East, my goodness, we'll take it. I know I will. I want to see peace everywhere, right? So, but here's the reality. I have to think to myself, because there has been a global shutdown. There's been a deliberate shutdown of the economy, globally speaking. And the reality to me is that, how I feel about pre-allocation with new money like XRP and the advantages that it can have because it's a cross-border solution to the world, that I tend to think there's a great possibility that this could be a part of that peace deal, that everyone receives some new money that could accelerate the economies for all winners. All countries could be winners, right? So, look, is this speculation? You better believe it is. But I do believe that there is allocated XRP that has been spread around the world to the proper entities in the proper areas of the world, because it ain't money unless everybody agrees that it's money. And if everybody agrees that it's money, it might be just one of the many big bargaining chips that would bring you to the table for a peace deal. And why do I say that? Because it's not just about the Middle East. Well, Jim Rickards puts a post here and says there's one story that may be bigger than the elections, the riots, and the pandemic, but it will take a few years to play out. The U.S. will convert China's $1.2 trillion of treasury notes to a trust fund for patients or victims of the pandemic and for economic damages. Bye-bye China reserves. Now, I don't know if he's being tongue-in-cheek here with what he's saying, but what I wanted to build on this idea is, let's just take it for what it is and say that happens. The U.S. will convert China's $1.2 trillion of treasury notes to a trust fund for the pandemic victims. Listen, if they do that, right, there's a problem. There's a question you have to answer here, because one, if you just take that away, you run the risk of a physical war, right? You understand that, right? So at the end of the day, if you're going to, let's just say this leans in. Let's say this leans into the Nassar Jassara talk that people have had for a long time about a debt jubilee. Well, the question remains, as co-hosts Cryptopolis and myself have discussed many times on this show, how do you make the bondholder whole again? Because you're just not going to take $1.2 trillion worth of their bonds away and say, nanny, nanny, boo-boo. That's going to cause a big physical conflict, and nobody wants that. However, again, leaning into the speculation and the theory and the idea of pre-allocation, if XRP was pre-allocated to a certain degree to these countries like China and some of these other players of the world, then maybe that's how you make them whole again. Because once we see all of this get the classification that it needs, so banks and the financial institutions, and you know the drill, can all begin using it in grand scale, it will drive the asset extremely high in price to serve the liquidity needs and the utility of the world for cross-border payments, from everything from derivatives to the FX market to cross-border remittances and beyond. Just a thought. Now, moving into this idea, now Ripple partners with AirWallex, partners with WeChat, and launched a new solution that works with payments made through MasterCard, Visa bank cards in the UK and Europe. Now, what's interesting about this is that AirWallex partners with WeChat, which is a Ripple partner. Ripple is an American company. AirWallex is partnered with WeChat. WeChat is out of China. right? That's huge, it's hugely used in China. Since its loss in 2011, in fact, China as Wexin, I guess is how you would say it, has evolved from a messaging app to a service platform, and it has more than 1 billion users, mainly in China, and they find it hard to live without it. Now, do you think if this was really a scenario was going to happen here, where they're going to just convert those treasuries without making them whole somehow? First of all, there'd be a physical conflict. That'd be a problem. But if they do make them whole and they use something like pre-allocated XRP in some way as a part of the deal, then I would say it's not really hard to believe that you would see an American company have indirect ties with such an important service platform that is tied to more than 1 billion users in China. Because if there was a problem, I don't think China would be having any of it at all. Now, more good news. Swiss banking giant unites Ripple and Swift on one platform. Well, we saw this a little while ago. This is not the first time we saw this, but the Swiss Route cloud service makes Swift and Ripple a choice of RippleNet on that network. So for payment solutions. So that's exciting. But look at what we're looking at here. Regulations are rolling out. There are constant announcements that are happening about more connections and more market infrastructure, more plugging into RippleNet, more plugging into the use of ODL or potential into further, in the future to use it. And the idea that who else is making these kinds of inroads when it comes to cross-border payments and setting up the ability to have the market infrastructure or the financial plumbing put in place to absolutely be able to win in this particular market? Well, interestingly enough, we go back to the interview with Zoe Cruz that was done by the gentleman who had the title Video Digital Asset Allocation. A really great talk with Zoe Cruz, who is a board member and executive for Ripple. And I want to take you through two different comments that she makes that are just profound. And I want to start with, let's go to right here. Okay, let's start here and just listen to what Zoe says here. Check it out.
Crypto investments, and I believe in diversified investments, as moonshot opportunities where your investment could go to zero, or you could make 100x if that world continues to grow. So with moonshot opportunities, as you know, you don't want to put your kids' education on the line, but it is rational. It is rational to actually have 1 to 5%, and if you really believe in the stagflation environment, 10% maybe, into that world, but not just Bitcoin and not just XRP, but the top contenders.
Yeah. That's a remarkable statement. And what she's talking about here is not a stock style investment approach that would graduate little over time, slow and steady. What she's talking about is a venture capitalist style approach to investing in a new emerging market that could set you up for a moonshot, where you see massive and huge gains. Now I'm going to take you to another spot here, and it's rational in her mind to use 1 or 5% allocation, or even 10% if you believe in the stagflation that's taking place. And I know I do, but that's not financial advice from her or me. But I want to take you now to the next point. This goes to everything that we've talked about leading up to this moment where we're going to hear her speak now. Think of everything that we just looked at, from the regulation, the potential notion that, first of all, this part is not speculation. There was an accelerator program where there was $300 million worth at the time of XRP pre-allocated to incentivize the world and the market makers of the world. It was an accelerator program where that money, that XRP, was pre-allocated to incentivize and to basically prime the pumps, or get the people who can prime the pumps to hold the asset for when they were able to eventually use it, or if they could use it, to begin to using it. And there's contractual obligations on both sides of the fence there, to whether they honor those things. If not, then it returns back to the original escrow account. Now, that part is not speculation. Now, who has it? We don't know. But I have to believe that much of the world is holding it at this point. Certainly the world that impacts the economy globally. So let's listen to this next comment, what she says about Ripple, the company, what they're doing, and she calls XRP a bridge currency, which it is. And listen to what she talks about as to who is doing what Ripple is doing, if anyone. And listen to the remarks of this.
Well, look, I think they chose a space, the cross-border payment space, high volume, low value, not the Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs space. The one that addresses, it's a multi-trillion-dollar space, by the way. $200 adds to a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you're talking about 1.7 billion unbanked. 1.7 billion people don't even have a bank account, no matter how small the account is. And another 2 billion people underbanked.
Right.
So they chose a space that said, not only do you have people outside of the financial system, and XRP being used as the bridge currency, because it was designed for that, is a multi-trillion-dollar problem that if I solve it, I make a lot of money, I being Ripple, but also I make a difference. And frankly, the reason I am so excited to work with that company is they can change the world. So
are you hearing the impact of what she's saying? I mean, listen to what Zoe Cruz is saying. She chose to work with them because she believes that they can change the world. So do I. But the reality is, keep listening to what she says here. It is quite profound.
That's their mission. They're not going to, it's very expensive, by the way, to have railroad tracks that reinvent the way cross-border payments are being done. So they're lucky to have a balance sheet for such a worthy goal. Having said that, look, I used to be an options trader. Options are wonderful things to have, provided they're not too expensive. They understand that the ecosystem is being built, exchanges that are worthy of that word, as opposed to fly-by-night exchanges in the middle of nowhere. So they are putting some money in that optionality of, if that infrastructure gets built, it has two things. One is it legitimizes the space, and also you're making money on your investment. But I would say they are very smart in the way they're going about these options, but their main mission, where the money is being spent, is really laying down those railroad tracks that are very important. And no one, I mean, frankly, as I said, they can't pretend they occupy Bitcoin. They are store of value, just like Bitcoin is, obviously. But they're the clear winner currently in that cross-border, the clear winner. And
Right.
That's why, as I said, though, I also say they could be the Netscape of the world, or they could continue to be Google from day one to where they are today.
There it is right there. And they could be Netscape, which has gone away since the time it arrived, right, in the internet world. Or they could continue to be Google. She's acknowledging that they're already the Google in the space that they're in. Pretty profound stuff. Okay, guys, look, I'm going to cut it right there. That is Zoe Cruz, executive board member for Ripple, former co-president of Morgan Stanley, telling you that Ripple and XRP are clear away the winner in this space at this time. When I look at the current events that are happening around the world, whether they be political events or whether they be regulatory events, everything is falling into place that is showing us that there is a much bigger plan happening here. And it's not just about investing in crypto. It's about using a new money to solve a problem for the world that has existed since we've had money. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, share with somebody you know, and I'll catch all of you on the next one. If you haven't done it, please get on that monthly newsletter. Get on the rich list. There's going to be coming out later this week. I want you guys to get all the information that's going to be coming out on that, and I will catch you on the next one.